All right, well, good evening, everybody. My friend Natan asked me to watch this video, and I will tell you could also subscribe to his channel. You see it here, Natan, and then it says in Hebrew also. And let's watch his video, and we can discuss the question that he addresses here.
You heard a rabbi discussing some Jewish apocryphal books, one of those being Sefer Enoch. I find myself asking a question. I'm asking this question to all rabbis out there, and I think everyone should go to the rabbi with this question. With why is Sefer Enoch, the book of Enoch, apocryphal, or many call it heretical, when the Zohar is widely accepted, many deem it holy, and the Zohar in Sefer Aleph, Bereshit A, section 51, this is the book of the generations of Adon, page 456, it discusses this importance of the book of Enoch. But yet, we're told it's apocryphal, it's heretical, not to read it. Why?
All right, so it's a good question. I don't mean to click on that video.
Basically, I had walked on the Firestone.
There we go. So anyway, so it's a good question. Why is the book of Enoch not accepted as part of our scripture? There's a few answers to that. First of all, which book of Enoch? We have 3 books of Enoch that are at least 3, if not 4 or 5. There's several, but there are 3 widely known books of Enoch. And the first 2 are generally the Gentile books of Enoch. Even though it's pretty obvious that they do have some Jewish source to them. But Rav Chaim Vital, in one of his Sfarim, although it's a little bit controversial, not everybody accepts that he actually wrote it, but Rav Chaim Vital, in the way that we have, he mentions Sefer Chanoch Nimsa B'Yedei HaGoyim, that there is a book of Enoch that is found in the hands of the Gentiles. And he quotes different things from the Sefer Chanoch, from the book of Enoch. The truth of the matter is, the book of Enoch is not an apocryphal book. There's different categories. So there are the books of the Apocrypha and the books of the Pseudepigrapha. So the Apocrypha is specifically the books that are in the Catholic Old Testament that are not in the Jewish Tanakh and also not in the Protestant Old Testament. Or the Protestant churches that do print them in their Bibles, these books, they will call them Apocrypha. Catholics do not call these books Apocrypha. They call these books just the Old Testament, or if they do make some kind of a differentiation between those books and the rest of what they call the Old Testament, which is the Jewish Bible, the Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh, they will call it a Deuterocanon, the second canon. But they don't use the term Apocrypha because to a Catholic it's somewhat insulting, similar to how to a Jew the term Old Testament is insulting. It's not quite as bad, but it's maybe not even close, but it's similar in certain ways. Because to us, there's no Old or New Testament. There's just the Hebrew Bible, which is what the Protestants would call the Old Testament. But we don't recognize any other testament, any other bris, any other covenant. That's what the word testament means, is a covenant. We only have the one testament, and that's our Tanakh. And just the same, and just the same Christians ask, how do you look at the New Testament? And I said, well, how do you look at the Book of Mormon? The Mormons claim that that's another testament of Israel, and obviously their theology and ideology and everything is vastly and radically different than the other Christians, and yet they're looking at the same Bible. So, but the question is about the books of Enoch. Now, the truth of the matter is, the only church that I know of that has the books of Enoch in their Bible is the Ethiopian Coptic Church, if I'm not mistaken, or the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which is different than some of the other Eastern Orthodox churches. Very similar. It generally has some fellowship with them, and I believe that the Ethiopian churches and some of the other Slavic traditions, they do have books of Enoch. And then you have the Qumran, the Dead Sea Scrolls, where you have some portions of some of the books of Enoch, as well as some other books which are very similar types of apocalyptic literature. And then you have the third book of Enoch, which is the Midrash of Rabbi Shmuel Kohen Gadol. That is an accepted midrash in the Jewish, for lack of a better term, canon of midrashim, of homiletical literature. It's not really canonical, not even in the sense that the Mishnah or the Talmud has a certain level of canonical labeling. The midrashim are much less so, except maybe the Midrash Rabbah. The Rabbah midrashim are maybe somewhat more, and the others, the Mechilta, and the Sifra, and the Sifri, and the Tanchuma, and so forth. But this is one of the midrashim, and so the third book of Enoch, I would say, would be on par with the Zohar and with other midrashic literature and Kabbalistic literature. It's a very Kabbalistic midrash. What's often called the third book of Enoch. But the first two are they're simply not in our tradition. We only have them, other than what we have from Qumran, which also is not part of our tradition. We don't have any traditions of these books, just like we don't have, is there anything, let's say, problematic per se with the book of Tobit, one of the actual Apocrypha books? There's nothing per se in the book of Tobit that's objectionable, other than perhaps some things that it says about Nineveh and about Noah that we don't necessarily share the statements that are there in Tobit about, the statement, it seems that Tobit somewhat is contradicting Jonah to a certain extent, and we don't really have clarity about Noah's wife and the kinship that he had to her, as opposed to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who did marry kinfolk, and that's something that Tobit is exhorting Tobias, that he should marry kinfolk, and he gives the example of Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The tradition we have is that Nama married Noah. Is it the same Nama that's from the children of Cain? I don't know. It's not very clear, because the Zohar doesn't seem to say so. The Zohar seems to say that Nama was a demon, a succubus. So you have these different things. So it could be very well, just as there was more than one Chanoch, more than one Enoch, more than one Lemech, there could have